the Beyond the Paper Gown community, and a podcast to educate women about healthcare. All factors affecting their health, emphasizing innovations and solution for women healthcare. Mitzi also actively mentors entrepreneurs in the healthcare industry through angel investments, especially those that focus on women's health. She also plays key roles in various non-profit organizations, including chairing the board of the Institute of Mental Health Research and serving on the board of Black Women's Health Imperative. A very interesting fact about Mitzi is that not only is she a doctor in real life, she's also played a doctor on television in a local CBS affiliate. So, welcome, Mitzi. Extremely delighted to have you with us tonight. Would love to hear a little bit about you and your journey.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, I think you kind of just covered it. So I appreciate that. But just to kind of, I'm sure people are wondering, why is she here? She's a doc and a women's health person. And really, it's very simple. Because of my focus on women's health a few years ago, I was being consulted for my clinical expertise by women who had literally pain points that were not being addressed by the healthcare system or in the market. And they were actually creating companies to solve those, not unlike the entrepreneurs we have here, both on our panel and I'm sure in the audience. And that was, for me, the light dawned that this was the way we were going to change women's health. And that has really been borne out in the last few years. And so I literally wanted to be invested, and that's how I got to Golden Seeds. And so we have a health sector group that looks at everything from life sciences all the way to wellness. And so I sit on that and co-lead the health sector group, but we also do obviously consumer products. So I get a chance to learn from my colleagues about investing in that. And as we talked about right before we came on, there's a lot of overlap, if you will, and growing overlap. So it's a really exciting time to be in this milieu. So thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for that introduction, Mitzi. Extremely thrilled to have you with us tonight. I'd like to introduce our second speaker for the evening, Mr. Laksh Mohindra, who's just joined us. Laksh is the founder at Disguise Cosmetics. It's a fairly new cosmetic brand that focuses on sustainability. Laksh, by his educational background, is a chemical engineer, and he has been associated with a few large companies in the past. For instance, he was in the research team of Procter and Gamble. He brings technical expertise to the makeup industry. Now, Laksh's startup, like I said, is dedicated towards sustainability. So they create vegan and cruelty-free products, and they're focused on minimizing the use of plastic. Interestingly, they also recycle their packaging to reduce environmental impact. Laksh also has a varied international experience of having worked in countries such as Singapore, Japan, and the United States, which has shaped his entrepreneurial journey, leading him back to India, where he saw a thriving ecosystem for startups, especially in the makeup and beauty care industry. Laksh and his co-founder have been inspired by the dynamic growth of the cosmetic industry in the past few decades, and they're on a mission to offer unique products to Indian customers that resonate especially with Indian consumers. So over to you, Laksh. Please do tell us a little bit about yourself and your entrepreneurial journey.
Thanks for such a lovely introduction. I think you covered most of it. For us, the focus has been really on the quality of the products. Me and my other co-founder, Shivangi, both come from the research background. She was more into the consumer research and raw materials for the makeup, while I have more background in terms of formulation and processing of the products. So the idea was simple for us that we wanted to deliver high quality makeup and skincare products also eventually to the Indian customer at affordable prices. Thereby, we always saw like it's eventually is happening that the industry is now recognizing and moving to a sustainable ecosystem, starting from the raw material sourcing to the overall management of the packaging components. But it's always like the more people join this movement, the more favorable economically this would start becoming. And we're already seeing big players now also trying and set up really important goals in this regard. So for us, we have never seen sustainable as any sort of compromise on the quality of products. it would have been, it's really possible to do all this with vegan and cruelty-free ingredients to match the quality what the consumer really deserves, as well as to do our bit for the environment.
Thanks a lot, Laksh. Extremely delighted to have you with us this evening. I'd like to introduce our third speaker for the evening, Mr. Gerson Montenegro. He is the Chief Operating Officer at Juviscience Life, and he's a seasoned global executive who has a remarkable career that spans leadership roles in medical devices, consumer healthcare, OTC products, and nutritionals. He's been associated with certain really large and prominent organizations such as Johnson & Johnson and other distinguished companies. Now, Juviscience is a pioneering life sciences company, which is dedicated towards creating technologies that are targeted towards anti-aging as well as longevity. Now, as his role as the Chief Operating Officer, he leads the global operations at Juvisciences, and he oversees the entire life cycles of the products from their conception to their development to eventually commercialization. Their primary focus is on developing cutting-edge IP-protected dietary products and functional foods. They launched their first product in 2021, and since then they have launched other products as well. Gerson and his team are currently in the process of developing and deploying several new business platforms and initiatives in the field of longevity, positioning Juvisciences as pioneering force in the pursuit of longer and healthier life. An interesting fact about Gerson is that he is by education an aeronautical engineer, and he was associated with an Indian company called L&T for some time. I don't think he's practiced engineering ever since, but yeah. Welcome, Gerson. Happy to have you with us tonight. Please do let us know a little bit about your journey and give us a brief introduction. You're on mute, Gerson. If you could just unmute yourself.
Okay, so thank you very much for the great introduction. I think you did a great job. It's very hard to add anything to what you said. One thing perhaps is that I have experience at Johnson & Johnson working cosmetics for many years by leading the consumer healthcare group. So, and working in corporate America, if you will, for many, many years. And now moving to having Juviscience and create a company from scratch, or help to create a company from scratch, are two different worlds, right? So it's very interesting to understand the differences between being as active in a large corporation and have to now start a company from scratch. So very interesting journey I had, and I'm very, happy to be here in this panel.
Thanks for that, Gerson. Welcome. I'd like to introduce our last speaker for the evening, Ms. Sheel Jain. Now, Sheel is the founder at Gush Beauty, which does skincare infused makeup, and their aim is to provide simple makeup, functional makeup for novices who do not have a deep understanding of makeup as such. So when you use their products, you really don't need a deep learning curve. Like I said, their goal is to create beauty products that are not only functional, but they're also fun. Their focus is predominantly on the Gen Z, like she told us, and they believe in multifunctionality of products, like offering more than one purpose. The brand aims to provide finger-friendly, easy-to-use solutions that you can use, like I said, without deep learning curve. A little bit about her background. She has transitioned from the venture capital private equity sector to being a founder herself today, because she also saw great potential in the cosmetic industry to establish herself. She's an avid learner. She keeps learning new things, keeps picking up new hobbies one after the other. I believe right now she's learning how to dance. So yeah, really happy to have you with us today, Sheel. Over to you. If you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and Gush.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. I think with everyone else's introductions, you've covered it all. You haven't really given us a lot to add. But a little more about Gush. So we're a 1.5-year-old brand. As you mentioned, we do skincare infused makeup, but most importantly, we do multifunctional makeup. So the goal with Gush is to help women declutter their beauty counters and create makeup that do life with them. Yeah, and we try to have products that are clean, but also skincare infused, because according to us, like clean is stable state. So having vegan, cruelty-free formulas that are dermatologically tested is super important to us. But we also make sure that it's enriched with a lot of goodness of active ingredients like shea butter, hyaluronic acid, etc. And as a little bit about myself, I dabbled in the VC space a little bit, worked as an investor for a little while, and then transitioned into being a founder. Yeah, and that's what keeps me busy these days.
Lovely, lovely. Really happy to have you with us, Sheel. So before I get into a lot of other questions, one question that I'd like to pose to everyone over here, because all of you are entrepreneurs who've transitioned from certain roles. So what was it that inspired to take on this entrepreneurial journey? Because it's really hard to leave, supposing like a high-paying job or something more stable and get into this field of doing something for yourself. So maybe we can start with you, Sheel. You're a young entrepreneur.
So as we discussed earlier, the goal with Gush was just to declutter makeup. And as a Gen Z beauty consumer myself, I just saw such a massive space in the beauty market where no one was targeting girls like me, right? Who are just getting started with their makeup journeys, who don't exactly know where to start. Beauty has often been very intimidating to people like me. So I started Gush not from a mindset of having a certain economic output, but more just from a consumer's POV, because I really wanted to solve this problem and create makeup products for girls like me. So it was just the problem for me as a consumer that motivated me to dive into this.
Lovely. And in fact, I've gone through your website and really, really interesting products, especially those stack lipsticks. And like me, I myself have really never been able to understand makeup so much. So it was definitely something that I could relate to. Maybe Jason, you can talk a little bit about your transition into entrepreneurship.
Sure. I was, as I said before, working for J&J for many years and pursuing different jobs in the same company. And I was always driven by the sense of purpose. So being in a healthcare company, there's a purpose to save lives, even, improve lives in the wellness space. And, if we're talking about color cosmetics, I think it's an important part of you feeling better. We using those products. I work in these categories. So when I decided to leave J&J, I was looking for being more independent and investing. I started investing in companies. Associate myself with private equity firms and some hedge funds, and end up investing. So when I found about Juvenescence and the opportunity we had to put a company together from scratch, as I said, Juvenescence Life, with a high purpose to improve people's lives and how people live longer and healthier. That was really, for me, a huge opportunity towards this sense of purpose. And I was very excited with the opportunity to join a group of people to make this happen. And the purpose is not only to sell products, it's really to improve people's lives, how they feel better about themselves, how they feel better about their health, their families, and their lifestyle. And that was, for me, the big motivation. So I was very excited to go, and it's not easy, as you know well, right, to put up a company from scratch, started from nothing, right, basically, and put it together and then launch products and develop products, etc. So, but the sense of purpose for me has been guiding my decisions. Do something meaningful, something that you're going to improve people's lives.
Lovely, lovely. I think it's, like I said, it's both about anti-aging and longevity, which is like a really interesting combination. And happier lives, you said, happier and longer lives. So yes, that does.
Exactly. Feel better.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. Laksh, if you can tell us a little bit about, because you've had like solid jobs in the past, right? If I was in Procter & Gamble, I would think a lot.
For me, I've always been a products person. So I've worked on the research and product side with Procter and then for L'Oreal also. but the pull has always been for me to create something that I envision. And just like with your own company, your own startup, it's a lot smoother, it's a lot faster, and it's a lot more challenging also. And obviously the reward is like if you are able to address, as Sheil said, that consumer issue or consumer tension or the feedback you get from the consumer. So for me, like I remember that we were not at all aware of like how would we market it or how would we sell it. It's just like we wanted this product to be made like and then we just did one of the kiosk or stall and directly interacted with the customer, and then we got the motivation or for the reinforcement that we are on the right track. When you hear it from the customer itself, they're willing to pay you money for it. And then that was really inspiring for us from there onwards to keep organically growing this.
Thanks, Laksh. So, were you also inspired by a lot of startups in this space? Is there any particular brand that inspired you, or any particular brand's journey that really inspired you?
I really like there's a brand called The Whole Truth, which is doing something like innovative in the food space. In our category, like always, like you could see how sugar and to some extent Mamaearth have challenged the like the pole positions of Unilever and L'Oreal, and now like become like a good revenue holder in terms of the category itself. So that has been really inspiring how something which started 5, 6, 10 years ago has suddenly become so big. They're now everywhere. And likewise, a lot of brands from there onwards have got inspired and followed their journey also. So that's something interesting.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for that, Laksh. So let's see. So you were a doctor, right? From that, your transition has been immense to what you're doing today. You're a podcaster, you're a venture capitalist in a way, you're of course, like I said, an entrepreneur in your own right. So could you tell us what was it that really drove you?
Sure. Well, I think my North Star has always been women's health. And when I was at UCLA, had the real honor of helping to create this model of women's primary care, along with making it more virtual and seamless care with our subspecialist. And then again, I always am amazed, and I tell this to my kids as well, you don't know what the jobs are going to be in the next few years. All the jobs that I've had are ones that I think I was the first one at. And so then I went to Humana as vice president of women's health because I wanted to understand what a large insurer, how, they had 6 million members, how could we impact on women's health in that way? And it was a great opportunity. We started a corporate lactation program, for example. We had an OB, high risk OB program that reduced NICU admissions. So it was really, we started a postpartum screening program. So that was really very fulfilling in a lot of ways. And then, as I said, I was led to investing because I was seeing this this wellstream of women trying to change and find solutions for their pain points. And, just to go back, we are 51% of the population, but research, we weren't included in research until 1994, mandated to. Sex as a biological variable wasn't mandated until 2016 to look at those things. And so we are really behind. And that's why a lot of women, I think, are very frustrated because we don't have the information and we're just getting it. And these companies are really actually not only providing solutions and evidence-based solutions, they're adding to the literature, they're collecting data, and they're increasing awareness. And so for me as an investor, it's very also fulfilling that I can make an impact by helping these companies either with my, as a subject matter expert, or even, again, trying to get them into the market as well. And it was very interesting. I just went to Boston for a Women's Health Innovation Summit. And they said when they first started, they could put everybody like in a conference room. And now, they're using 2 floors because the innovation has increased. What is challenging is getting the investment, and we can, that's a whole other conversation. And so then the reason I started the podcast was because I've always, and it's called Beyond the Paper Gown, because health is so much more than just in the doctor's office. And I wanted women to understand those factors that were impacting on their health, not only the research or lack of research, but as we've seen in America, policies as well as politics, and these innovations. And so that's why I started the podcast, and also do some consulting as well.
Lovely, Mitzi. So if I were to ask you, what are the top 2 things you would consider while lending investment to someone, to an entrepreneur who comes to you, what would that be? Of course, we know that you're focused on women health, but what are the top few things that you see before you decide, okay, this is the right candidate for me to invest in?
Sure. It's interesting because, we also are doing some modules for our investors in health, because it seems to be kind of overwhelming in a lot of ways. But when you get right to it, it's still the investment thesis. Is there a market? What is the competition and what's the differentiation? And certainly IP is a big differentiator and a barrier to entry. Is the team good? And have they shown some kind of evidence that the market wants it, or that it, is ready to scale? So it's really, just really the bread and butter kinds of things that we look at in any companies.
All right, lovely. So you spoke a lot about competition. So I'd like to pose this question to you, Laksh. Now, there's so much competition in the cosmetic startup space now. I mean, unlimited brands are there. So what are a few challenges that you faced as a entrepreneur in this industry to establish yourself? Like you said, you have organically grown in the market, but what are the few challenges that you faced on your entrepreneurial journey?
Obviously, a good deal of challenge, like once you create a good product, is to reach customers. I think that would be with every business, but like when you are starting up new, apart from the product, you also have to find innovative ways how you could market it or reach effectively at a cost-effective rate to the customers. And a lot of challenge for us is in that space, because this with more and more companies or businesses in the D2C category coming up, this is a fiercely competed space, like the digital marketing space, where you're competing more and more. If you see the pricing per se to reach the customers have increased drastically, at least in India, for last year and a half or 2 years. So that's posing us challenge. Like, do we start charging more to the customers, or do we how do we survive in this? That's the real challenge that we are addressing right now. And other than that, there is always the other aspect is that we want to give best products to the customers, but at the same time, when there is healthy competition, you always want to somehow outdo them in terms of products. So that's always keeping us on the toes in terms of what more challenging aspect or what more innovative we can do that somebody else is not doing, how to differentiate us, because you're a small brand, and then to be differentiated at that level also becomes challenging sometimes.
Right. So just one question, because for both you and Shield, right, your products are sustainable, cruelty-free, vegan. Does that increase the cost of production? Is that like products that use a lot of chemicals, are they cheaper?
So with us, we're also skincare infused, right? Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, we can. Please.
Yeah, so we're also skincare infused, so which means we use a lot of active ingredients. So active ingredients cost extra, which do make the product more expensive. But we try not to pass that onto the consumer as much as we can. That's the genesis of D2C, right? Like when this channel actually came about, the goal was to create a channel wherein we can go directly to the consumer, get rid of all the middlemen, aka the distributors, and pass on that additional advantage, the price advantage to the consumer. So yes, but it is more expensive, if that's your question.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
our experience has also been similar. It's a bit more expensive, but as I was saying earlier, the more now you see even bigger industries moving in this direction, bigger market players. So it's becoming more and more optimized at the supply level itself. That's a trend that we see. Things which were slightly more expensive earlier, with more demand, the supply chains are also getting optimized.
all right. All right. Thanks for that. So, Jason, your company creates IP protected dietary products, like you mentioned, and functional foods. I believe a lot of research would go into that, right? If you can tell us a little bit about the process of coming up with these products and what kind of research goes into it.
Well, and also tagging on the question before, I think one thing we found in this industry, in the cosmetics industry in general, that in my experience is very important is innovation in being a distinctive proposition to the consumer. So this is applicable as well. So look at the points of differentiation. How can you differentiate the product and position your product in a unique situation? So you don't depend so much on cost. So you play the value game. So that's the thing. So looking for that innovation, looking for how we're going to look at and fulfill the unmet needs, find out about the unmet needs of your target population, right? Are key and very important. And then protect that. There are many ways to protect it, as you know, right? So we can patent, we can do other trade secrets, etc. The important thing is always go into the edge and try to find something unique. And for that, the innovation process is not necessarily your own innovation process. So create alliances and partnerships with companies, research institutions is critical. It's very, very important, because I believe in a multi-ecosystem where you have different constituents that will help and get together to fulfill what your mission is. So innovation is one, protection is another one. And in this case of Essence, in the case of J&J was the same, looking for those partners that have that unique proposition. So you can have something that nobody else has it. So again, it don't depend so much and really have to bring costs down. Also, of course, cost is important, but should not be the main driver of these businesses.
Lovely. So one question that I'd like to ask the entire panel, because all of you have really interesting names, be it Disguise or Gush or Junescence, or even the name of your podcast, Mitzi, Beyond the Paper Gown. I'd like to know from each one of you, what was it that you were thinking when you concepted this name? Because all of you, I'm sure, were involved actively in that. You're all the founders or entrepreneurs of your particular businesses. So maybe we can go one by one. Maybe we can start with you, Mitzi, because it's a really interesting name for the podcast, and I'd really like to know the thought behind it.
I think I alluded a little bit to it, but basically, again, I'm really of the thought that, again, our health is impacted by so many more factors than just going into the doctor's office or the paper gown. So it's really kind of going beyond the doctor's office and looking at all those factors, including the healthcare system. But again, looking at policies, politics, science, research, and innovation as well. So that's why we wanted to capture it that way, and it kind of just came. And it's really interesting to me, because when I say it, especially to women, they get it immediately. So that was the way that I knew we had hit on it.
No, it's actually really lovely and extremely innovative name.
Thank you.
Sheel, what about you? How did you come up with Gush?
I think one of the days we were just sitting as a family thinking about what to name this upcoming project. And I think it just came through one of those brainstorm sessions, because when I was thinking about the brand, one of the key things was, how do we create experiences worthy of being gushed over, right? Not just products, but brand experiences, brand touch points, everything from the packaging to the website to the social media. So that just stuck. That was the insight. We wanted to create experiences worthy of being gushed over. And that's where we derived the name Gush, because it is just so maximalistic in its feeling, right? It's the feeling you have when you have a crush on something. You really, really like something. So we wanted to create that exact emotion from everything we do. So it's sort of like a North Star also. Yes.
Lovely. Like you gush with happiness or you gush with emotion.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. What about you, Jason? In a sense, what was the story behind the conception of the name?
Yeah, when Juvenescence name came about, it was really a pure play around youth, longevity. So Juvenescence has to do with that. So we, when the name was put together, we wanted to get this message across that the companies focus on longevity. And either it's in RX products or consumer products or VMS space or cosmetics, is all around longevity. So it's a pure play around that.
Yeah, lovely. Like, I mean, of course, I could understand once we spoke, but it's extremely interestingly coined. Thanks for that. What about you, Laksh? So, Disguise Cosmetics, how did you come up with that?
So for us, because we are a makeup forward company, we've always seen makeup as a disguise, which it in a way empowers you to be like who you want to be. So like we wanted to, like, you could choose your disguise, you could uh, pick up the front like you want to be in a way, and the makeup traditionally or how we envision it is a way to empower that.
Lovely. So, I mean, I think all of your names have so much of an emotion attached to it, right? Branding is a journey of what you feel and how you feel. And it is actually your intellectual property that all of us must protect. Apart from, of course, the name, the various other aspects, right? Like Jason was talking about differentiating your product from the others in the market, because it is a crowded marketplace at the end of the day today. So what is the approach that each one of you follow for differentiating yourself now? Of course, you have your own missions, right? Like for Sheil, it is doing something that's easy, or for like Lakshit, sustainability. But do you also focus on creating a very unique packaging or a very unique layout of your website? I mean, it starts from that, right? Each and everything that a consumer encounters is a brand differentiator or is a market identifier. So what factors do you focus on creating this product differentiation in the market? Maybe we can start with you, Sheila.
Yeah, that's one of the main things that I'm really passionate about, right? As I said, creating differentiated brand experiences. So at every touch point, so the most important being the packaging, right? So at Gush, we try to innovate on packaging a lot. So for instance, if you see one of our best sellers, it's called the Superstats. It's a 4-in-1 lipstick. So normally in the market, you'll see one lipstick in one packaging for liquid lipsticks. But at Gush, we stack it up and we make it really beautiful and interesting to look at. One of our other hero products, it's this product called Squishy Blush. So it's essentially in this really fun, playful packaging that squishes from the middle. So we want it to be sensorial. We want it to be fun to look at, because we understand we're creating products for an Instagram first audience. So visual appeal is something that needs to be there, because otherwise makeup products end up looking more or less the same, right? So just the function and the form of the packaging is something we try to innovate on. Other than that, we also have a very distinct visual identity, which wherein we infuse a lot of colors, interesting hues. All of our, like, if you go on a website, it's just a burst of color, maybe a little too maximalistic. Similarly with our social media, because we wanted to just look incredibly joyful. So creating that differentiated visual identity is very important to us. Other than that, also just small touch points, right? Like when someone gets a box from Gush, we write their name on it. So we write something like, "You make us Gush, Sushmita," or whatever your name is. So just those little details really matter to consumers, and we try to make sure we do something just a little bit different at every place. Yes.
Lovely, lovely. What about you, Laksh? Because I saw both your portals, and one was like gushing with colors, like you said, and yours was like really pastel and beautiful greens and browns. So, what was your thinking behind creating that experience?
Just as Sheel very nicely summed up, it's just like the experience need to stand out in a way. So for us, like I still remember, we chose upon that our lipstick containers need not be black. And although like once we started making it, we really realized like, wow, why classic containers come in a black shade, because it's easy to hide any marks that come on it during production. But now, so we've just like somehow innovated the process or the manufacturing around that. We want our lipstick containers to be a light pastel green color that we want to like sort of connote with the sustainability aspect of the brand. The liquid lipstick containers we were looking at, we found something interesting. So again, that's something like one of the major experience in this industry is through packaging itself. How and that's also, if you look at the product cost, is a major contributor of the cost of goods as well. So there, that becomes a very important point where we differentiate apart from the formulation itself, where we try to address something that is already a challenge in the industry. So, for example, the liquid lipsticks as a category is picking up in India, but many times it has the issue of that it becomes too drying or too stiff by the end of the day. So we really wanted to address that problem, that we want consumers to have the desirables about the product, but at the same time reduce or remove the undesirables about the product, because the first moment of truth is through the packaging, but then there onwards your product would, the performance of the differentiator would bring them back for another purchase with the brand. So that's what we focus on.
Lovely, lovely. Thanks for that. And what about you, Jason? What is the unique visual experience that you try to provide? Not just visual, of course, it could be in any form.
Yeah, I think there are many components to that, but I go back to one thing that's very important, is the overall consumer experience. So you mentioned website. It's important you have a face to the consumer that is not just an e-commerce face, but it's a content face. So one of the things we use a lot is the content face for the consumer to learn things about their health, learn things about their experience with the product. The other one is, I think we're talking about here, is how you position your product. So I can give a couple of examples. When I was at J&J, we launched Neutrogena Rapid Wrinkle Repair. So the name Rapid Wrinkle Repair actually became owned by Neutrogena as a wrinkle product for anti-aging consumers. So the way you position the product, the way you put this out there, and of course you have to have the packaging and everything that goes along with that. The other example is Clinique from Estée Lauder. Clinique is a brand that is positioned themselves as ingredient focus, and with less ingredients that are not harmful, similar to some of the propositions I'm hearing, right? So having that positioning will differentiate that brand, and the two examples I gave, from other competitors. And finally, if you have a unique active ingredient, I think she'll talk about active ingredients and having active ingredients in products. Active ingredients are very important because they're a big source of differentiation. But you have to find that that unique active ingredient that you can claim. Then you have to go to do clinicals, and you can really claim to the consumer that that product works like that. So that's the biggest part of this whole differentiation. And all remats to this overall consumer experience. Because today, if you think about direct-to-consumer sales, right, that like we do, Amazon and other marketplaces like Amazon, they really dominate that. So your contact with the consumer, your touch with the consumer needs to be more content touch with the consumer. Differentiate yourself, not as much as e-commerce. E-commerce will come, you can partner with Amazon, partner with eBay, other marketplaces. So again, overall consumer experience is very important.
Yeah, lovely. And I think a lot of the experience that you're offering is sort of seeded in intellectual property, right? Like a lot of aspects that you spoke about, having that active ingredient or having that unique packaging or having that unique name. So, Mitzi, you did mention that IP is an important aspect that you consider when you are choosing, say, a founder that you want to invest in. So, how I would say, where are you as an investor, or what is the importance that IP really plays for you when you decide whether to invest in a product or not?
Sure. Well, again, it's one of many factors, but what you want to make sure of, or at least try to ensure, is that you're not going to be competing with a lot of other companies, and that, excuse me, that this company has something that nobody else has, and that would make it more attractive and more successful. And so, with healthcare, that's pretty easy. There's a lot of patents involved, especially with devices and so forth. Cosmetics, not so much, except for what we just talked about in terms of active ingredients and that kind of thing. Certainly you can be successful without a patent or any IP protection, if you're a first mover, for example, and you've got so much, excuse me, market share already. So you've already, kind of jump started, but it really does help to kind of slow down the competition. And I think that that's, again, another feather in the cap.
Lovely. And you are also, like I mentioned in your introduction, associated with a few non-profit organizations, right? You tell us about one role that you're really enjoying in terms of philanthropy or these endeavors.
Sure. I am on the board of the Black Women's Health Imperative, and it is the largest national organization focused on improving the health of Black women and girls in the United States. We work on everything from programs to health programs and we have a CDC contract to reduce or to focus on pre-diabetes. We have a number of girl programs, and we also do policy. And I came to it because of my interest in women's health, certainly, but I have learned so much. And excuse me, I am so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Please.
And and also, especially Black women in this country are at such an increased risk. We look at maternal child mortality, and we have, unfortunately, in the United States, one of the highest mortality rates in terms of maternal mortality of any developed country. But Black women are 5 times more at risk. And so to be able to look at some of those issues and address them with this group and see the improvement that they are doing on behalf of Black women and certainly women at large, it's really been very gratifying. And like I said, I've learned a lot. We are celebrating our 40th anniversary, and with our founder, Billy Avery, who was there from the very beginning. And I couldn't be more proud to be a part of it.
Lovely. I mean, it's really, really inspiring to hear whatever that you've been
Sure.
doing.
And if I can just say one other thing, again, I've always come to medicine and healthcare as we need to treat the entire person. We have to look at everybody's differences. But I'm also gratified to see when a lot of these new companies come out, they're looking at a more diverse population and being able to service people for whatever it is that their needs or their different needs are.
Yeah, lovely. I mean, we have 3 founders over here who is sort of
Absolutely
doing that, catering to specific needs of the people. Now, my question, of course, to all of you and to you also, Mitzi, because you're all out there and you need to, even when you're doing charitable work, sometimes it's necessary to be out there. How important is social media, and how much are we focused on social media presence today to really see how important it is for our brands to grow, to have this social media presence, because it's become so prominent these days, especially with skincare and healthcare. You have so many influencers endorsing different types of products. So how much do you really think it's important, and are you really investing in it as a founder? Maybe we can start with you, Sheil.
Social media, 1 second. We have spent most of our marketing budgets on social media. We understand that our consumer is getting all of the information through social media. So it's the primary platform for customer acquisition for us. Be it, of course, in social media, there are different things like influencers, as you mentioned, or performance marketing, which is digital marketing, or just posting on our own channel. But we're hyper focused on creating new content, talking about a story, educating, entertaining on social media. It's, I think, it's a no brainer for any new age brand.
Absolutely. So are you also in panel with like a few brand endorsers and influencers over Instagram and all of that?
Yeah, so we actually started launching products with certain influencers. So
Okay.
we co-create the products with them and then launch it. And that's been very, very successful for just top of funnel awareness, for getting people to know about a product. Yeah, we've also started doing a little bit of outdoor advertising, so through billboards, etc. But we always use influencers for that because their reach is much stronger than anyone else's. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's true. But what about you, Laksh? Are you also as involved in social media as she
Yes.
here?
I mean, for a D2C brand, that's the major way to as a point of contact to the customer presently. So invariably, that's, as she said, that's the major spend or the major focus area in terms of our marketing as well. And there are many ways to do it, and it's very evolving. Like there's something trending, and then next few months it changes or something like that. So yeah, it's always like a major focus area for us.
Right. And what about you, Jason? I don't know. I mean, I know in India it's huge, but I don't know about your market. If you can just shed some light.
We're focused in the US market, which is amazingly great, and it's growing, outgrowing any other form of communication with the consumer. So social media for either content or for e-commerce is very critical for the growth of the brand. In the US this year, the data we have is that the great majority of transactions are done through the phone. So from the moving from physical to computers and then laptops, and then now it's the phone, iPad, whatever. So, and social media is a #1 channel. I mean, if you put all social media content in in one channel. So we invest more and more in social media. I think the whole market is investing, and other forms of communication with the consumer are important, but social media is really outgrowing everybody.
Absolutely lovely. And what about you, Mitzi? I mean, of course, you're it's a little different for you, but you also have your podcast and you also have to be out
Sure.
there, right?
Sure. And what I've learned, both from doing the podcast, but also working with women's health companies, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, because I focus on women over 40, where they get their information may be very different, or in some ways different than Gen Z, for example. Older people might be more liable to be on Facebook, though I've been really interested to watch. I've seen subreddits on menopause, and certainly Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. So yeah, I think it's fluid, certainly, but there are some, in terms of trying to figure out where our customers are, if you will. The other thing that's kind of interesting, and I don't know that it really pertains to this group so much, but it possibly could, is that especially in the women's health space, there is a lot of censoring on social media for products. And that's become a barrier to some of our entrepreneurs, because they can't get their message out because they might get flagged for a certain body part being mentioned or what have you. Or sometimes they don't even know they're being banned. It's called shadow banning. So it's just something to be aware of. And hopefully that's changing with light being shown on it. But it has been a real challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs in that space.
Okay, that's really interesting. I didn't know about that. It's medical in nature and still it's banned because it's considered offensive.
Yes. If they say vagina or breast or whatever it is. I interviewed a woman who has a brush product company, and she has to literally go BR3AST to get through the algorithm.
Wow.
And I, not to say that it's very unequal, because as we know, we see a lot of men's health advertisements that are much more explicit. So there is some bias, unfortunately.
Interesting. I mean, hopefully it'll change with times.
Absolutely.
Right. So my next question to all of us here, especially Justin, Laksh, and Sheila, you're all sort of early on in your entrepreneurial journey. Where do you see your brand 5 years from now? What is it? What's your 5-year vision, or what is it that you wish to accomplish in the next 5 years with your brand? We start with you, Justin.
Well, if you talk about Juvenescence as a brand, the mission is to make Juvenescence the authority on longevity. It's a very single-minded mission for the brand. So in 5 years from now, we want to be the authority in the space. And that's why Juvenescence is not only about consumer product, it's broader than that. So it's a broad statement. It's a very ambitious statement. This is a space that's growing very much. There are a lot of companies that are joining this space. It's becoming more and more crowded. So for you to become the authority, so you need to invest on the brand. I really believe in brand equity, and brand equity doesn't exist, doesn't grow if you don't invest. So invest in scientific content, invest in really getting substantiate your product. We talk about the active ingredients, etc. Substantiate the performance of your product, doing clinicals, all this, and send that information to the consumer so you become the authority in the space. When the consumer is going to talk about longevity or think about longevity, even if they don't want to buy a product from Juvenescence, they can go to Juvenescence and ask for information, and they will become the authority. And we have to play very carefully in this space, not to get into in a point where we're going to give medical opinion about things, because consumers will ask questions. So it's not an easy space to deal with, but that's our aspiration.
Lovely. Would you say you're a pioneer in this field, or are you one of the first few entrants in this field of longevity?
Yes, yes.
And
Yes,
and
the
you want to be
company
an
actually
authority.
started many years ago in the RX space in the UK. So now what I'm part of is when we put together the company in the US in the consumer space.
Lovely, lovely. I think, like you said, it's a very clear vision for you to become an authority in this space. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be a little different for Laksh and Sheila, I guess, because there's so many players already here. So what
Very
about you?
much.
What about you, Laksh? What is your vision?
So for us, it's just scaling this brand to reach more and more customers. We were just discussing the other day, me and Shivangi, my co-founder, we were thinking something like if we could reach 1 million customers by the end of 5 years, that would be something really cool for us.
Lovely. That's simple maths, just scalability. What about you, Sheila?
Yeah, just an extension of what we're currently doing, right? Which is uncomplicating women's lives, making it simpler and easier. So we want to do it across sectors. So, we're looking at getting into skincare soon, hair care. We want to go much deeper into India and make sure that every woman who can afford us has a Gush product in her vanity or her purse or on her. We also have ambitions to go global. So hopefully we'll be in global markets very, very soon.
And I mean, like I said, I've gone through a little bit of your website, and right now you're not doing a lot of foundation and all of that, right? It's mostly lip tints and sticks and stacks. Is it a conscious choice? Because it's about makeup, no makeup is what I read. Or do you want to get into that space eventually?
Every product that we do, we're very, very intentional about it. So we'll get into foundation, etc. when we have a clear breakthrough, right? And also foundation is kind of a product that tends to be bought in person because you need to match not just your tone, but also your undertones. So as and when we go offline, that'd be the first product we do.
Lovely. Nice. And what about you, Mitzi? What is your vision for yourself? And of course, all the founders that you're supporting.
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, yeah, obviously, we want our founders to be successful, and I'm looking forward to even future founders because, again, I think this is a very exciting time, especially in the healthcare and specifically the women's health space. And I think what you're going to find is not only are we going to get more innovations and products, but I think there's going to be increased research, hopefully, and more answers, as well as more investment. And that's probably the biggest issue for a lot of these founders right now, in terms of convincing the investment community that this is something important. In terms of Beyond the Paper Gown, you talked about branding a little bit, and what we try to do, we have a tagline: candid, curated, incredible. And so I'd like for people to know that when they come to us, we are really curating the best of the best information, and that they can trust it. And hopefully we'll end up doing some more kinds of things in different media. So that's my hope.
Lovely, lovely. I think we're through with our time for the evening, but before we sign off, I'd like to hear from each one of you little advice that you would like to give to young entrepreneurs. Use yourself a really young Sheel, Laksh, and Jason also in your entrepreneurial journey. But people who are just embarking on this journey of entrepreneurship, what would be the one advice that you would give them? Maybe we can start with you, Jason.
Well, I think the first thing is you have to have passion for what you do, and find, for me, in my whole career has been critical, is get around and surrounded by good people, good talent. Nothing replaces people. Technology does not replace people. Processes, that they don't replace people. So having the best people around you, and find a champion idea. I think what I find in this space is that there are a lot of good ideas there, but people don't champion them and they don't execute them well. So find that and go for it. And that's why I mentioned passion, because without passion, you don't get there. You have to believe in what you do. You have to believe in what you want to create. And for me, there's a specific thing for me. It's not for everyone. For me, you need to have a sense of purpose. I mentioned that in the beginning, that this drove me to J&J, to Juvenescence. That sense of purpose, whatever is that, is very important, because it's a big driver to be successful. I believe on that.
Absolutely, beautifully said. Sense of purpose is extremely important in whatever you do. So thanks for that. What about you, Laksh? What would be your small piece of advice to all young entrepreneurs out there?
I think as he summed up really well, that it's apart from, like, I'm just assuming that the passion and the product or the idea is sorted. I feel the real important thing is that, for me, like, it's also a journey where you realize your limitations, in terms where you know yourself better as a person, that, okay, this is something that I'm good at and this is something I'm not really good at. And then once you figure that out, it's about connecting and just getting that base covered with the right sort of people that you could network or connect with, or bring in behind your idea, or just get them excited about what you're doing. So eventually it's just the realization that you would not be able to do it alone is something that's important.
Lovely. Like you said, you end up realizing your own limitations as well on this journey, right?
Yeah.
What about you, Sheel?
I think one of the things being an entrepreneur teaches you is the muscle of hustle and grit. So much of it is just showing up every day when it's so incredibly hard. So one of the things that I would recommend everyone who starts this journey is to understand that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So just to come prepared to sort of show up every day and just be able to sort of be a person who can be a jack of all trades, because especially in the early days, you might not have the luxury to have a big team. So you're doing a lot of learning on the go, be it how to make ads, to how do you edit creatives or social media. So just to have the gene or that sense of being open to learn is really, really important. For the 0 to 1 journey, especially.
Lovely. constantly learning, which is also something you live by, right? Lovely. Now, what about you, Mitzi? Of course, you can give a message for the founders, but also to all the women out there, because you're such a champion of women's health. You can maybe just tell us a little bit about what you would want the women out there to know, even in terms of mental
Sure.
health, because women go through their own
Thank you.
journey every day. So,
Yeah, well, thank you. Let me go back to the entrepreneurs and then I'll go to the women if that's okay. I was a Girl Scout leader for a long time, and one of our mottos was use your resources wisely. And what I, and maybe also even when it comes to healthcare, there's a lot of resources out there. I know that we give office hours, for example, at Golden Seeds for entrepreneurs to come in and talk. There are local resources sometimes for entrepreneurs. So do avail yourself of those, because that will help you and also get you out in the network. And then also be able to be flexible. So people, Kirsten and Lakshmi talked about passion, and certainly that is important. But sometimes the market you may need to shift when you learn a little bit more. So being able to do that without getting whiplash is really important. So that's number two. And then with respect to women's health, I think that the best advice I can say right now is, educate yourself and don't be afraid to ask questions, but also, the whole adage about, put your oxygen mask on first. If you don't self-care, and that goes for entrepreneurs as well, to Shil's point about, there's so much, sometimes it's really hard to, get through the day. You really have to take care of yourself if you're going to be successful and if you're going to be able to have anything left for somebody else. And I think it's really important. And as you said, mental health is really something to be attended to.
lovely. Put your oxygen mask first. Love yourself and take care of yourself first before you take care of others. All right. I'd like to end on this note. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's been a very, very exciting discussion for me. I hope all of you also had a nice time. And thank you for your participation tonight.
Thank you.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you all.
night, and have a good day, Justin and Mitzi. Your day is starting.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.